Hey, everybody, welcome to It's Real with Jordan and Demi, alongside Demi Ramos here in New York City. I'm Jordan Edwards. Welcome to the show. We are very excited to have one of my favorite rock artists on today. You may know him for his work as the frontman of Switchfoot. Jon Foreman also has a really robust solo career that spans 2.5 decades. He's got some really great new music out. His new album, Departures, is out now. And we're really excited to talk to him. So let's bring him out. Everyone, please welcome Jon Foreman.
Hi.
Jon, what is going on? First of all, great bandana game.
It's at the ready at any moment.
Yeah.
We're distant. All right, I'm ready for you.
Where are you right now?
I'm in San Diego, home sweet home. This is our home studio, and we have kind of bunkered up during.
Sneak peek of the studio?
Yeah, sure. I'll show you around. This is like, I mean, how in depth do you want to go? We can.
Anywhere there's no Wi-Fi. It looks pretty.
So these are surfboards. A bunch of surfboards up there. Whoa. Surfboards and guitars, pretty much everywhere. And
that could be like the title of your biography: Surfboards and Guitars.
Yeah. So we were like, well, if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna be stuck at home and we can go into the studio, let's make the studio amazing. And so that's what we've been doing. This is I got people near me. So this is Eric Frost. Hey, what's up? This is
what's going on, Eric?
Down here. Woo! Yeah, you're live around the world.
Wow, live! Love to see it.
Yeah, so that's our studio. It's
awesome.
It's a blast. It's good. Like, it is my sanity during this year where I'm like, okay, I feel some crazy feelings. I need to go to the studio and figure out what to do with them.
So is this where Departures, your new album, is this where it was created?
Yeah, pretty much entirely here, except for the beginning of the lockdown when I was at home. So this is the place. It's like this. I'm sure everyone needs to have their happy place. For me, this is like either here or in the ocean. Those are my two places where I feel safe and I can understand things.
Well, the new album is gorgeous, and I would describe it as different than Switchfoot, but still friendly enough for Switchfoot fans to kind of to swallow, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So tell us about the music behind this, because it does kind of have that Switchfoot feel, but it's a little earthier. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little more of on the singer-songwriter side. So tell us about, the music of this album, where it came from.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it, came from the year we just went through. I think W.H. Auden says that poetry is the clear expression of mixed emotions. And I feel like that songwriting for me is that expression. And this particular record came from almost like those dark confessional moments where nothing feels clear. And I feel like for me, you can either ignore those things or you can embrace it and tell the truth and get it out. And so that's kind of what this album is for me. And as far as it being different than Switchfoot, I feel like it's a lot easier to confess when you're not holding an electric guitar with a bunch of drums and amps and things behind you, that you can, when you strip everything away, it feels like it's much more honest in that particular approach.
Were most of these songs written during like the darkest times of the quarantine?
Yeah, a lot of them, if they weren't written during that time, it definitely was it had to be a song that resonated with the feelings of the year. So, for example, there's a song on the record, Jesus, I Have My Doubts. And I feel like that, I don't know that could have come from a different year. It felt like it came to me in, from circumstances. And, I don't think I was the only one wrestling with, death of people around me and some dark feelings and misgivings. But I felt like I wanted to just kind of enter into that and make it through to the other side. So there's a song on the record that actually wasn't written during this time, but the reason why it qualified was because it felt like it embodied what the year was about. The song, A Place Called Earth, that I actually wrote a couple years back with Lauren Daigle, and I found it on a hard drive and thought, oh my gosh, this has to go on the record. It feels like it's in keeping with everything that is happening right now.
Let's talk about that Lauren Daigle collaboration. You've seen her, she was featured on a Switchfoot song several years ago. And you've kind of seen her grow from this, small, like senior people, like the Christian music community knows, to really an international superstar, and kind of bring it full circle by having her on this track. So what is it like watching her career grow and then using, collaborating with her to make music for, this project?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a scene in San Diego that we were all very proud of each other. I don't know, like it's different everywhere, but you guys are coming from New York City. It might be different there, but for us, whenever any one of our crew, our friends got a deal or started touring, it felt like a victory for everyone. And I have that same kind of feeling for Lauren, because I feel like she's like this little sister that I'm watching kind of spread her wings and take flight. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of her. And so it felt like to be able to collaborate again and put the song together that we wrote years ago, felt like a good moment of, kind of being able to embrace the past and the present and move forward together.
The album cover is so cool and almost a little unexpected to me, coming from you. Can you kind of explain how you came up with this idea, and like the whole eyes are being covered? What's the story behind that?
Yeah. So, that guy that you met in the studio
Yes.
a few minutes ago, his name's Eric Frost, and he is one of our friends. It's a bunch of friends that we all work out of the studio. He's in a band. We're all in bands. We're all kind of, he's a kind of in charge of all the visuals that we do with Switchfoot or solo. And so we did a photo shoot, me and him, late one night, and he had this acrylic, it's like this thing that he had created that you could manipulate a piece, this clear thing in between the lens and the subject. So that tape over the eyes is actually tape that I'm looking through this lens, and there's nothing like digitally done afterwards. The picture is actually just, that's the way it looks. And yeah, it was really kind of a strange way to shoot, like no Photoshop, but everything done in the moment. And that's where that picture comes from.
Well, it's a really cool album cover, and I think that you do the whole package, the aesthetics of the album and the sound, it just fits perfectly. But I also, so one thing so first of all, Jon, when I booked this interview, I told Demi that you have one of my favorite rock voices. I feel like when I came up in the 2000s, when Switchfoot was like really breaking out, that sound of the crunchy, like, really like edgy guitars that Switchfoot had, and your voice just kind of floated over the top of it, almost just kind of, not to make a surfing pun, but like a wave, and you came up in this era where people were screaming, and you came up in the, I think about all the rap metal and the emo core and things like that, but you maintain this great, like, smooth voice. So tell us about how you resisted. You could have like maybe sold more records if you'd have screamed a little more, but you didn't.
We had a record exec tell us, the head of Sony at the time, it was at the Grammys, and he pulled me back to his like huge bungalow that, you know, you take a meeting with him like the king or something. And I go back there, and he tells me that we failed because we lost the battle and that Nickelback won. There, he was
We
like,
were defeated by Nickelback.
yeah,
Oh,
and he was like, you should have done something more like this. And I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna be me.
you should have permed your hair, Jon. You should have permed your hair. You know,
and I have nothing against rapcore or Nickelback or anyone. I just think I'm a horrible actor, and I feel like I have to be myself. You know, like I'm. You can ask my wife. I'm the worst liar ever. I like kind of smiley, smirky guy who's like, yeah, I don't think I should do this. You know, So I think it wasn't an active choice to say, hey, we're gonna. I think it was just intentionally just trying to be ourselves, you know, and ride out whatever wave is gonna come and go.
When writing songs like Meant to Live, I mean, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. I was listening to that the other day with my little sister, and we were jamming out. It's timeless. Some of your songs are just timeless. Did you, when writing songs like that, were you aware of the potential that it had and how big of a hit it was going to be?
Oh, no, it's strange because music is, I always equate it with archaeology, where every day you get up and you take your shovel and you just start to dig and you see what you've got. And that particular song was what we uncovered that day, you know, and yet at the same time, for me, like I love it when people around the world can hear the song. It's such a powerful thing to be able to go overseas, for example, and have a bunch of people singing a song that means a lot to you. That is truly powerful. But the crazy thing is, for me, music is this continual quest for something that you cannot express in the moment. And I've talked about this so many songwriters. You're trying to, when you write a song, you're trying to stop time. You're trying to like make people levitate or explode or something that would never happen. And of course, you finish the song and it hasn't happened, so you have to write another one. But I love the chase. I love the pursuit. And I don't think in the moment you're thinking of any form, for me at least, you're not thinking of any form of hit per se. You're just thinking of the feeling that one song gives you in that one moment.
well, speaking of that specific song, you know, we get into the guitar nerd stuff on here, and that riff, that opening riff of Meant to Live in stereo, da 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 da, and you know exactly, if you know the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's my impersonation, so I don't trip off.
I love it, Jordan. That's
I don't
great.
trip off the copy. When I do that, I don't want to trip off like the copyright.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
people
yeah.
from like
Flag right
da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's my impersonation of the opening riff of Meant to Live. It's a quintessential 2000s rock riff. Even if you don't know the name of the song, you've heard that riff. And I think that's the ultimate compliment to a song. If you have a song that people know it, even if they don't know the name of the song, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Our biggest compliment to that riff was when Cypress Hill made a song where they ripped it off and put their beat underneath it. And I'm like, okay, we've arrived.
Nice. Some West Coast love. Some West Coast love. Yeah. So was that a riff that had been popping around your head for a while, or was that a spontaneous, you know, and even the decision to really do the stereo back and forth thing in the recording?
The stereo thing, I'm such a fan of the Beatles, and I love their use of the stereo field, and probably had to be inspired by them in some way. The riff was actually written, I don't have an acoustic guitar on me, but it was written on an acoustic guitar. And I had been renting this place near the beach right after dropping out of college, and that I'd been messing around with bending some of the low string, and that's where it came from. It's fun to think back, and because the irony is no one really knows where music comes from, and so that's the beautiful thing, is that we're all kind of never-ending novice, that you're always in that place of wonder.
Yeah, totally. And you have like that whole era was just, it's almost strange. And I'm glazing over the top of, I'm leaving out some details, but essentially what happened is, first of all, personally, you're a devout Christian. The band are Christian, but Switchfoot is not necessarily a Christian band. You just kind of got there because of a record label buyout. You kind of got promoted as a CCM band, and then your music ends up on the Walk to Remember soundtrack, and that propels you into the mainstream. I know I'm like glazing over details, but is that essentially what happens? Like, what am I missing?
I think that,
like, how did you end up on the Walk to Remember soundtrack after being on this, being labeled a CCM band?
Yeah, I think, we've always thought that Christianity's a faith, not a genre. And so, we grew up playing bar mitzvahs and frat parties and bars and churches and everywhere, coffee shops, anywhere. And it didn't feel like, I guess we didn't have the closed-minded thing of like, we have to be, our songs are for this one demographic and no one else. The Walk to Remember thing, that was a friend of ours from high school who happened to be up in LA working for a guy who's doing the music for that. And she had just gotten the job and he was looking for songs for that particular film. And she said, hey, my buddies are in this band that I went to high school with, and you should check it out. I think it'd be perfect for Mandy to sing. And that's how those songs got into that particular soundtrack. And I remember doing the red carpet, and we walked the red carpet because we had been on tour in a minivan kind of thing, and we drive to LA and we walk the red carpet, and the camera guys are like saying, who are you guys? And we're saying, we're no one. Just take the pictures of Mandy and move on.
Now, have you and Mandy met in real life where you had this mutual, like you both kind of boosted each other's careers? Like you just had this one moment where you crossed your creativity, her as an actress, you as a band, kind of crossed in this weird, strange way, and your careers were boosted because of it.
Yeah, every time we've ever met or hung out, she's always just everything that you think she is. She's very sweet, very real. And it is, she's just a great person. So
When
yeah.
most people see you guys playing live, it's really something to see. It's just like you guys are all over the place, like true rock band style. People are thinking, yeah, like rock band, trashing hotels, girls backstage, living the life, Well, how are you guys able to successfully combine rock and your faith?
How have you avoided the rock and roll lifestyle, Jon?
I don't know. I think, I think faith is what you do with your life. I think your faith is your lived actions, So I think that it's easier to say what you believe by looking at someone's actions rather than looking at their words, and I know a ton of incredible rock bands that are just amazing, genuine people that are living out their faith. I think, the stereotype of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, there's definitely, that is one element, but it's the same within the surfing culture where, I know a lot of amazing surfers that are really clean cut and don't do drugs and don't party every night. So I think for us, it's always been a matter of just saying, well, who are we? And we want to live our lives and make the best music for open-minded people.
Now, don't take this in the wrong way. This is a complete compliment. You look like you could be a character in like a romantic comedy where the single mom goes and meets the guy in the surf shop. So it's ironic that that this Nicholas Sparks movie helped boost your career, and you actually kind of look like a Nicholas Sparks surf instructor who like falls in love with a single mom. I'm just saying,
the single mom. It's always got to be the single mom.
Joey's a single mom. She's down in her luck. She's got a kid who's kind of a pain in the butt. And there she goes into the surf shop, to maybe look for a job or something. And there's Jon Foreman behind the counter waxing a surfboard. I mean, that's a scene right there. That's a scene right there.
There it is. No, I mean, no, I have never read a Nicholas Sparks book.
Have you ever
but
seen
I don't think I've seen that one. I did see Walk to Remember though. I like the tag Jon.
You saw the one that you had something to do with. That's good. Now, when I posted a little promo on my personal Facebook that I was going to have you on, and a joke, one of my friends who's also named Jordan is a music pastor in Kansas City where I grew up. And he's always been this advocate of Christian music doesn't have to be cheesy. I joke about there was this plague of fake Rhodes pianos that hit churches in the late 80s, and every church Christian music had to suddenly everything had to sound like Air Supply or something. So how do you feel about the way Christian music has evolved in terms of the quality since you've kind of started in the industry? And seen, and you've worked with people, even if Switchfoot isn't a distinctly Christian band.
I think again, I have a hard time using the adjective Christian to describe a certain type of music. I feel like it's more affiliated with how we treat each other than it is like what kind of guitar you play. And so it's tricky for me to like, I think music in general it's at a really exciting place right now where, kids in their bedroom can make an incredible song that gets huge on TikTok and blows up. I love that if you've got a great idea, the world is listening. And most of the things that when I was a kid that we made in our bedroom sounded really horrible. So I think
what I'm talking about though, that kind of like easy listening CCM kind of music that was really big in the early to mid 90s is what I'm talking about,
I mean, I grew up, my dad, even though my dad was a pastor, he taught me Stairway to Heaven. So I kind of had
a
understanding of what music was, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think like when I hear music from the 80s, I think I prefer the 70s and the 60s to the 80s.
You're the same way. Demi is Demi is a big music fan. She's looking at me, but she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She loves the 70s, loves the 90s, could take or leave the 80s. Am I right, Demi?
Yeah. What is that?
I don't know. I feel the same way. And I have friends that will argue the merit of certain music. And I'm sure there's a lot of great stuff in there, but if it ceased to exist, I mean, we'd all miss The Cure maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about a good example of that is think about how cool Heart was in the 70s and think about the songs Heart put out in the 80s, like, or Elton John or the Rolling Stones. There's so many examples of bands who like kicked ass in the 70s and then like their 80s music just didn't quite have the punch of the 70s stuff,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think that's the blessing and the curse of technology, right? Where suddenly you have the ability to get things perfect, and with computers and drum machines, and you realize, wait, I think I like imperfections. I think I love mistakes.
Yeah, and and you being a guitar band, it must have been exciting when you were getting started in the 90s that you had this kind of like this alternative grunge foundation laid for you and you could do what you want with it,
Yeah, it's so funny because I grew up, I loved, I mean, so many of the bands that were big when I was in high school were, seminal bands. But at the same time, I kind of loved the 70s. I was like a Zeppelin freak, and the 60s with the Beatles. And I feel like for me, that's what I listened to. And then I'd listen to all my friends who are playing backyards around San Diego. And that was like, for me, if you hit it, it meant that you did a tour of California. Those were like, oh my gosh, you're huge. You put out a CD. Wow, you guys have made it, you know?
Was that always the mission for the band? I mean, to make it as big as possible, or is that something that was just surprising for you guys?
It is absolutely surprising. I thought of music almost like surfing, where it's an incredible pastime that I will do for the rest of my life. But I didn't see it as a fiscal enterprise that you would actually be able to pay a house payment or something like that with. I always thought, you know, graduate college and, you know, being a band, those were all my heroes locally. They worked at the record store or whatever. But their passion was music. And that when it started to come to us where we could actually tour and support ourselves, it was much more of a surprise than a goal achieved.
How awesome was it to have your brother in the band? I must ask. Me and my
Or was it
sister,
a pain?
did you guys help each other like stay on track? 'Cause I know like being on the road can be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to have somebody around you close enough to punch you in the face when you're an idiot is
that
a
what
good
happened?
thing. You know, I mean, we all need that every now and then. Like, what are you doing? You're not, you know, I think to have that kind of ballast in your camp is a huge thing. And he is one of the most patient people. I have grown to respect him in so many ways. We used to not get along very well, and you know, not quite Oasis, you know, backstage, but definitely uncomfortable. And I think learning how to fight was a huge success for us, to be able to know that you're fighting because you actually care, and to look to the fight as the expression of love almost, you know, like we are fighting over this thing because we care so much that we're not just going to let it go. And
there was no issue of you being the front person and him not being the front person.
The funny thing is I had to learn how to be a front person. I don't like being like, if there's a party, I'm the guy in the corner who's like hanging out with like the kids playing cars or something, you know, like I don't like to be in the spotlight.
Playing cards.
And so I had to learn how to do that. And it was, I think I've come to a place where I can get inside the song and just represent the song rather than myself. And that's the way I perform.
It's funny you say that because one of my favorite questions to ask on this show is, who is the person behind the music, you know, stripped down? Who's the man underneath like the whoosh and the burn, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're one of those guys who's like more boring than what people would expect? That's the answer we get a lot.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I love philosophy books. I love surfing. I love playing with my kids. And
are your kids musicians? Have they gotten into music?
Yeah, you know, my friend who's an artist, he defines an artist as someone who appreciates beauty. And I feel like that is a very helpful definition to kind of borrow with music, because I find so many people that actually listen to music, that love music. I'd almost call them a musician more than the guy who's very proficient at his instrument but doesn't actually listen or love music, you know? And so with that definition, my kids are absolutely musicians. They love music, and I love listening to music with them. It is so fun to play like Michael Jackson or Bill Withers, or, you know, these songs that you've heard a million times. To play them for your kids for the first time is the best. And you can stack the deck. You can be like, here's what we listen to. This is Miles. This is
you have a fresh mind to like infiltrate with the music that you think they should hear.
Yeah. It is phenomenal, because you can be like, you can be there to watch their face for the first time they hear Strawberry Fields and think, okay, this is unreal. This is your first time hearing this. We
look forward to the Partridge Family style Foreman family band at some point in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it. I think I'd be kicked out of the band.
Yeah. All right, Jon. Well, we will let you go. thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the new album. It sounds great. And I hope you get out to tour on this thing soon. Do some festivals, do some concerts, you know?
We
I
will
love it. Yeah. And say hi to New York City. It's been a minute. So hope to be out there soon.
We will. Thanks a lot, Jon. We'll talk to you later.
See you guys.
That was Jon Foreman, lead
can't-
singer of the band Switchfoot. His new album, Departures, is out now. Demi loved doing this interview. She loves any kind of like origin story. What'd you think about Jon's whole deal?
I mean, there's just nothing better than you know, an all-American band like making some of the best music in the world.
Yeah.
Timeless. No matter the genre. Definitely one of the greatest, not just Christian bands, but rock bands of all time. So it's always great.
Yeah, it was a strange time to come up, and that's the weird thing about Switchfoot is they sound like a mainstream rock band, but when you try to put them into the categories of the time, you know, they don't sound like Papa Roach or Limp Bizkit or something like that, and they have a little bit more artistry than you know, your Nickelbacks and Three Doors Downs of the world, which, you know, Jon kind of touched on that, which was kind of fun.
Such a cool guy though, too.
Yeah, and great hair.
Great hair. I was
yeah.
like, wow, I was about to ask him like, okay, where do you get your hair done?
Yeah.
Like, he's in LA.
But he does look like a Nicholas Sparks character, like in a movie. He totally does. Okay. Anyway. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us here on It's Real with Jordan and Demi. We will be back next week. We will speak to Cade again. Cade had some technical difficulties last time he was on the show, so we will welcome Cade back to the show next week. Until then, you can find our whole archive of past shows on popdust.com or on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. And you can see video versions on Facebook Watch and YouTube. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.